Perfecto. Nessun problema. Comenzar con el video, ¿se puede? Dime.
Sergio over there.
Sí.
Yeah. He will be directing and telling you
When to start.
when to start the video.
Perfecto.
When to then give Francesco the.
¿Empiezan con el vídeo directamente de forética o le paso él?
Primero es el, bueno.
Primero el video e Francesco.
¿Quieres presentar el video o no?
No,
¿Presentación de video o no?
Maybe if you could introduce the
I can introduce the video, yes. Good afternoon, dear friends of the Spanish Pavilion. Buenos días. We are going to start our discussion on the future of agriculture and food security, a special look at policies and innovation. Before introducing you the key speakers of today, and greeting all of you at home, since this video will be recorded and will be online on the Ministry of Spain YouTube channel, I want to start broadcasting a video from our partner, Foretica. I restart? Yes. Then, while our technicians are resetting our video, let me bring us here in the room to our warm discussions. Especially for those of you following at home, we're actually very honored to approach this discussion with some incredible panelists. Let me start presenting them alphabetically, and then I will reintroduce our video, and we will start with the format of our discussion. A first half an hour, leaving them space for questions at the end. So, first of all, here on my left, I'm honored to present Aditi Mukherjee. Aditi, she is Director of Climate Change Impact Area Platform, the leading global research partnership for food secure future. Aditi is with us from Nairobi in Kenya. She's not only a global expert on adaptation and water management, but she leads all initiative on climate resilience as CGIAR. Aditi has been coordinating lead author for the famous IPCC water chapter, and she's now a core writing team member of the even more famous AR6, the sixth assessment report of the United Nations IPCC. She holds a PhD from Cambridge University. She over 80 publications on famous scientific journal, and she was awarded the Norman Borlaug Field Award for her contribution to sustainable development. Aditi, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Second, alphabetically and very dear to me, my friend Francesco Corvaro, the special envoy on climate change of the government of Italy, topic leader of the G7 presidency on the topic. He's from Italy, more specifically Pescara, in the beautiful region of Abruzzo. He's
sorry, Ancona, Marche.
Apologies. I was having a wrong notes here. I would say from beautiful city of Ancona in the Marche. At least to keep it on the friendly basis. Pescara was the location of the past G7. That's probably why I was there. He has been the key negotiator of Italy of the past two COPs. He coordinates national climate policy and represents my country in global climate efforts, including the current presidency of the G7. He's not a politician, but he's a scientist, more specifically a professor at the University Politecnica delle Marche, with 20 years of expertise in renewable energy, net zero strategy, and sustainable mobility. His role bridges sciences and policy, and I'm very honored to have you here, Francesco. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Third, Here at the center of our stage, I introduce the Chief Strategy Officer of Solimtech, Leo Carvalho, from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Maybe this time I got it right, the city. And Leo also the green mechatronics, has over 10 years of experience in agri-tech, and is the Chief Global Strategy Officer at the leading AI robotics company, transforming agriculture in Latin America. Under his leadership, Solimtech raised $60 million, expanding to a workforce of 800 people, including 330 doing R&D in agriculture. And it's something that we should be all very proud and supporting on. He established operations in 11 countries, including the US, Canada, and China. I'm very happy to ask you later of how it's doing business between China and the US now in the future of innovation. And about this company, if you're asking what they're doing, they actually have real-time insights, enabling farmers to make smarter, faster decisions. And when you ask him about one thing they're very proud about, he told me, you know that our latest innovation reduced pesticides by 90% in field. So thank you, Leo, for being with us.
Thank you.
Last but not least, I'm actually also honored to introduce you Mr. Timo Gasbeck, the Senior Officer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. From the AG in the Netherlands, Dr. Timo is a Policy Coordinator Officer on Food and Nutrition Security. His portfolio focusing on strategy, knowledge, innovation, with 25 years of experience working on the nexus between food and nutrition. These 17 years all include activities in different countries between Asia, Africa, and Europe. He has experience with humanitarian NGOs, academia, public administration, and most recently also innovative companies. He has a Master of Science in Tropical Land and a PhD in Disaster Studies. Mr. Timo, thank you for being with us today. About me, to close on the presentation, I'm honored to be moderating the panel today. I will not too many words since I've been speaking at many of the past events around here. I'm Andrea Gori. I'm the founder of Illuminem. I'm also teaching green technology at HEC, University of Paris. And I would say it's finally time to watch this opening video and enjoying a good discussion altogether.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the Oficina Española de Cambio Climático for inviting me to speak today. My name is Camila Cauer, and I'm a project manager at Forética, an association in Madrid with over 200 member companies. For 25 years, we've been helping organizations integrate environmental, social, and governance aspects into their strategies for a sustainable future. Today, I want to share our initiative, Sustainable Food Systems, which aims to transform the private sector's approach to food production and consumption in light of climate change and environmental degradation. Our working group includes over 20 leading companies and organizations such as Cajamar, Nestlé, Heineken, World Vision, and Fair Trade. Together, we seek to learn and exchange knowledge and take action for a positive transformation. The need for change is urgent. The World Health Organization reports that approximately 2.33 billion people globally face food insecurity. By 2050, the world will need to produce 56% more food calories to feed a projected 10 billion people. This highlights the need for transformative action in food systems. One outcome of this initiative is our publication titled Redefining the Future of Food Systems: Sustainability as a Transformative Force. It outlines 5 key areas that stakeholders must prioritize to secure sufficient, healthy, and sustainable food for everyone. The first key is nature-positive food production that also helps, not hinders, our efforts to combat climate change. Our current methods are responsible for 80% of global biodiversity loss. We risk losing vital food sources and natural carbon sinks since nature absorbs about half of human-produced carbon emissions. The second key is value chain improvements. For example, we must support providers in their sustainability journeys, since not everyone has equal access to education and resources, which is crucial as environmental risk in supply chains could cost $120 billion by 2026 and $25 trillion by mid-century. The third key is sustainable production models. For instance, crop irrigation accounts for 80% of water consumption in Spain, which faced one of its driest years in 2023, with water reserves at their lowest since 1995. This underscores the need for changing our current practices to protect and not deplete our natural resources. In our working group, large corporations, smaller and newer startups, and nonprofits meet to identify and exchange solutions together. The fourth key is nutritious and sustainable food products. In 2021, 43% of global population couldn't access healthy diets. This is alarming, given rising obesity rates in countries where they were once rare. We know that healthy diets are essential for the healthy development of our youth, a productive workforce, and a more resilient society capable of facing the greatest global challenges. And the last key is good governance and collaboration. Transparency and cooperation across the food value chain are vital for success. All stakeholders, from producers to lawmakers, must ensure ethical practices, including the protection of human rights and the equitable distribution of costs, prices, and margins along the value chain. I invite you to read our publication and the work of our initiative on our website to learn about how Spanish companies and organizations are taking action to improve our current food system and to ensure food security for all. Thank you.
Welcome back for those of you following at home. We're now sitting together and starting our discussion. I want to immediately give the stage to our Francesco Corvaro and start the chat from the angle of policy. Francesco, you led all the discussion of this G7 presidency. So where do we stand? What is happening in the policy debate for the future of agriculture and food security?
So first of all, thanks, Andrea, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here in this COP. The food is in the center of the G7, but not only the G7 in agriculture, but also in the environmental and energy transition, and also in the international cooperation. Why? Because climate change is affected a lot of part of the human life, but probably the worst is the one that is connected with the food and water. We are living right now in a new kind of equilibrium in the habitat that is starting to change. I went to Mauritania 2 months ago, and I had the opportunity to touch there what is really the land degradation. They are not able to cultivate more the food that they need, and they don't have enough water. And you know which is the consequences of this? A lot of conflicts. Last Friday, we launched in the COP the initiative that is called Climate and Peace. And you know what is inside of this Climate and Peace initiative? 3 pillars. The first one is the land degradation. The second one is food security, and the third is water scarcity. And we have a cross-cutting topic that is migration. For this reason, Italy decided to put the attention not only in different ministerial meeting of G7, but in the high-level ministerial meeting of Venaria, with a complete chapter dedicated to food security. And the main project connected with the famous Mattei plan is dedicated to nutrition and food in Africa. Because what the climate change is happening now. It's not something that will happen in the future. It's happening now, and Italy started to recognize this inside, because we have floods, we have water scarcity, so it is necessary to move and to promote solutions right now. And for this reason, we open a big discussion in the G7 groups, but not only with the G7, because Prime Minister Meloni decided to enlarge the meeting of G7 with our other main actors, like African people. Because if we want to fight against climate change, first of all, we need to fight against the consequences of climate change. Translation in COP language is adaptation. The correct translation of this is the adaptation. And if we want to do this, the first step is to start from the food security. Because, and I want to conclude to give the floor to the other speaker, I remain really impressed by speaking with the local community in Mauritania. They said to me, we don't want to quit. We want to remain in our land, but we don't have the possibility to produce food. And we have a project there, and the people that now has the possibility to have food, the next request is not iPhone, electricity, even if it is an issue in electricity. The first request is school. Because for them, if they have the possibility to keep their culture there, the next step is the education for a future for their daughters and sons. And this is, believe me, is something that have the capability to change the perspective that you have in front of the developing countries. So thanks, and I am here with you.
I'm already excited about where this discussion is bringing us. So if we speak about Africa, probably Aditi, this is already an access to you, right? You are the one of us living in that continent. And I love the word of Francesco saying adaptation means taking care of the needs of these local communities. You, in the IPCC report, you have been studying this nexus of energy, nutrition, water. So maybe can you enlighten us on which innovations are they coming today to make those local communities thrive and remain?
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you to Spain for inviting me, giving me this opportunity, and to my friend Elena, who was also a co-author of the same water chapter that I led. The evidence is clear. We have to absolutely adapt, but at the same time, while I won't speak so much of mitigation, but let me say that the IPCC report also says very clearly that there are actual limits to adaptation. Unless we stop emitting greenhouse gas now, there is no way these communities in rural Mauritania would actually be able to cultivate. So it's very important to know that adaptation has its limits, and effectiveness of adaptation in a warmer world goes down. So just let's remember that as a context, because adaptation obviously will not solve all our problems. Having said that, how can we do adaptation that also has mitigation co-benefits? So one of the examples I wanted to give in the context of the space between food, energy, and water is some of the work, and I know it's very, very relevant also for Spain, is how do we do irrigation without more greenhouse gas emission? So one technology that is now cost effective, that is very, very easy for farmers to adopt, is that of the solar irrigation, both agrovoltaics as well as solar irrigation pumps. So the innovation of the panels are, we know that IPCC shows clearly that the cost of solar panel is now actually is cheaper than all other, sources of energy. Basically, solar energy is now more cost effective than fossil fuel. So there should be nothing stopping us from doing this transition. But the problem when it comes to the farmers is that the running cost of solar irrigation may be zero because all it requires is solar energy, but the upfront capital cost is quite high. So everything kind of comes back to the question of finance. How do we finance a smallholder farmer, a man or a woman, to actually adopt those innovations for which the running cost is zero, but they have to put in a substantial amount, like a $500 would be a big money for them. Even the cheapest one would be that much, and that would be so. So I think that is a very good innovation, solar irrigation. Some of the work that we are doing in South Asia, before this I used to lead this research project called solar irrigation for agriculture resilience. And one of the things we were working on is grid-connected solar pumps. So farmers have the opportunity of either then selling the electricity back to the grid and earning money, or using the water to do their pumping. And farmers are actually very, very smart people. They were making smart decisions. So in very arid region, when through agromet services they know that that year is not going to be a good year in terms of monsoon, they actually decided to keep their land fallow and instead sell the electricity back to the grid to earn income, because they realized early on in the season that they simply won't have enough water to do the cultivation. So we have to provide those options to farmers for a dignified living, because as Francesco very rightly said, they are literally at the forefront of climate impacts, even though their own carbon footprint was very low. So we have to think of everything in terms of mitigation, adaptation, co-benefits. We have to do it together, because adaptation alone or mitigation alone won't help us. Those have to go hand in hand. And obviously that's why those are the two main items of the discussions we are having here. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Aditi. And I like how this red line is bringing us, right? We need to do something for the local community, innovation. And thanks to you and the work of Elena Lopez, also here in the room, two authors of the report, is actually at the core of this solution. We discussed agrivoltaics, we discussed grids that could be micro but could be integrated of different usages in those communities. Now I want to expand even bigger the picture. When I come to you, Leo, you have done of innovation a job, of innovation like a mission. So maybe can you give us a picture of where are we going in the world of agri-tech, and how can this help solve many of the challenges we see today?
Thank you, Andrea, to be here. Thank you to invite me. And I can say that I'm a delight to have people here that are discussing about the food, about the water, about the adaptation for the agribusiness, because even that we are in the middle of the climate change conference, we cannot stop to say about the ag, we cannot stop to say about the food security. This, in the terms of the priority, probably it is the first issues that you are suffering these days. And to be honest, I believe that this opportunity that we have to talk about not just the technology, but talk about the ag, could be a game changer for the next generation of the population. And I hope in Brazil, next season, we can put this team as a first place, because for sure the climate changes happen. We are discussing this, but I believe that food security needs to be a priority in this discussion. So talking about the ag innovation, we understand that we need to produce more food in the same square meters of the lands. And we cannot make the deforestation. We need to care about our farmers. And you know that when you see the chain of the producers, the farmer, it is the weakest one. We need to put more force, give opportunities for them to be more efficient, to be more efficient, more sustainable, because every path through the farmer. We can create a lot of policies, but the farmer needs to be the guy that can receive the credits of the carbon, need to be the guy that receive incentives to use kinds of technology for innovations. And when you talk about the innovations, we are seeing a different kind of innovation, not just for technology specifically. As a Solinftech company, we are providing technology, but you can see a genetics innovation. We are seeing a biologicals. But to give access for the farmer, need a different collaboration between partners, between big players or initiatives, governments, for the privates. I believe this entire world need to understand that the farmer needs one more chance to be more efficient. Without taking out the farming in this entire system, I believe that we have knowledge about what the ag can produce, and you know that ag use a lot of water. For that, we need to give them technology that can save water and be more efficient at the same time. That is the challenge that we are facing. Make the farmer more efficient, more profitable, and sustainable at the same time. And this is what Solinftech put our efforts, to create technology, in this case, that can touch in different perspectives. It is one robot that you are creating that is solar panel powered as well, that live in the fields, that's saving pesticide and fungicides close to 90%, between 85 and 90% of the reduction. We can save water close to 85%. We are reducing the costs of the operation of the farming. We are giving them a chance to be more profitable. In the same time, we are being more sustainable, helping the environment and help the farmer produce more food. That's what we are discussing here, talking about the food security. I believe that not just with technology, but with biologicals, with incentives that make farming more efficient, this could be a big game change for the next generation of the egg.
Very interesting. So, like, it seems we have clear the ingredients. Ultimately, we need more food, and we need less resources to produce it. Maybe it's the perfect moment to cross continent again, from Africa to Latin America, back to Europe. I go to you, Timo, and I wanted to ask, in the experience of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, a champion globally of cooperation, how can we make sure that these innovations, the innovation that Aditi and Leo and Francesco speak about, can reach the places that need it the most?
Thank you very much. I think it begins with linking people together. The work of CGIAR is very much located in countries themselves. We support that very strongly, but also connecting people to each other, connecting organizations to each other. I think another thing that really needs attention has to do with the business case. We see a lot of beautiful innovations being developed, but if it doesn't work for a farmer to invest in it, then it will not scale. I worked in Rwanda before this, and a lot of Rwandan farmers earn $50 a month with their household, of which they need to pay some food, they need to pay clothes, they need to pay healthcare, water, and school. So what you have left then to invest in your farm is very, very little. And I think there we need to look at solutions of how we use public money, how we use private money, but in a way that keeps farmers in business. The urgency is extreme. It was mentioned that we need 56% more kilocalories, but yields are going down. And if I read the IPCC report, yields are going down faster than we can compensate with adaptation. So we need more land to produce the food that we need for the population of tomorrow. But we don't have more land available in this world. That means we need to do less of something else. And I think we need to really also engage globally on that, because some areas might need to change in what's happening, but that requires a global conversation and not just a village by village conversation. Thank you.
Very interesting, this perspective. Maybe we stay like on the policy corner, and I come back to you, Francesco. Maybe which one are the progresses that you see happening in the field of food security, in the field of agri-innovation for this better place?
So, from a political point of view, it's difficult to say which is the progress, because sometimes you can find declaration, letter of intent to support some particular alliance or not. But, for example, I want to give you an example of this in the private sector. Today I met the company Bayer, that they are developing new kind of seeds for rices that is able to resist to lack of water. So they request a less amount of water to have the possibility to produce rices. And this indicates that in some, if a private sector decided to invest in this kind of solution, is a sort, for me, is a sort of positive answer, because it does, the private sector started to understand that is a priority, not only in the world, but only for different governments. And this is only a small example of this. In Italy, for example, we decided from a political point of view, to try to answer your question, to indicate, to nominate a food security ambassador. We have a special envoy for food security that is dedicated only to this issue, not only at the international level, but also at the national one. Sorry. And the main topic of this mandate is to propose to the government how it is possible to invest the money for the international cooperation to achieve result in the food security. But as said, in my opinion, is crucial the global cooperation among this issue. For this reason, it is important to have also a coordination among governments in this direction. Without this, is extremely difficult to promote good answer in the food security. So we need to propose international cooperation among governments, and in this case we evaluate the opportunity to have a special envoy for food security.
You said first that you didn't have the example, there are many progresses, but you gave us the most beautiful example, right? When a country feels the needs of bringing at the top of the agenda a topic, what about example than dedicating like the primary task of a special envoy, of an emissary of that country to that, and let him speak to the word that is a priority for security. I build on your words, and I go back to you, Aditi. And Aditi, all of us, we mention food security, all of us, we mention innovation. Maybe the additional element is at the core of your studies, at the core of your publication, has always been water. So I wanted to ask you how water plays a role in ensuring this food security. What is the novelty there?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. And while I always think that it would be very, very obvious the role of water in food security, the reality is people actually forget you need water to grow foods. It's like really funny. But the thing is that 70 to 80% of our agriculture is rain-fed. The land under agriculture is rain-fed, so that's really dependent on rain. And we know that with the erratic rainfall, with the variability, with the drought, growing food in those rain-fed areas will become increasingly challenging. While only 20 to 30% of our global land is irrigated, but that actually produces the vast majority of our food, principally because irrigated land has very high production compared to rain-fed lands. So irrigation has always been one of the major ways in which you can adapt to climate change. But obviously it has its own limitation, and I think both Spain as well as India knows the limitation of intensely irrigated agriculture, and that is in the form of depletion of groundwater resources. So while water plays a very important role in food security, and it will need to continue to do that, unless we manage our water well, our food security will also be in peril. So that is in addition to climate change, right? In our chapter, for example, while the climate change fingerprint is very high on surface water and on all forms of water, when it comes to groundwater, the leading cause of depletion of groundwater is not so much climate change, but a lot of it is related to growing inappropriate crops in a very arid area. Like, for example, in India, we grow very water-intensive rice and wheat in semi-arid, arid areas. Spain does the same. I mean, it's largely arid, semi-arid, and then growing water-intensive crops. So we have to actually match our crops with our water endowment. I mean, we have been endowed with, we thought that we have a lot of water, but in reality, we don't. And while I have the microphone, I did think that I will also share with you this latest report. This goes beyond water, but we also look at some of the other opportunities. This is called the Agriculture Breakthrough Agenda Report. The Agriculture Breakthrough was launched in 2021 at the Glasgow COP26, where the idea is how do we make agriculture more resilient through adoption of technologies. And there are a few low-hanging fruits of how we can do that. And in this report, we talk a little bit about the innovations in livestock and fertilizer. So, I mean, yes.
And for the friends following at home, the report is downloadable for free, of course, on CGIR website. So actually have a look, because a proper fact sheet on how agriculture can change. I actually like what you tell me, and I didn't know that number. Like 70%, right, of the entire agriculture of today is rain-based in a world that is having a complete new pattern of rains. So maybe, again, we need innovation. We need to rethink about it. And here the problem is, how can we spread this innovation faster? How can we scale it faster? And I love your example, Leo, because you bring an example from the south of the world to the world, not another example from the north, the south, one directional. So tell us more. How can we bring it everywhere, those needed innovation, in a period of changing weather patterns?
Definitely. I believe that I can use Dr. Timio as an example here, because the technology needs to be accessible for everybody. And for this, we need to make the technology cheaper. But as a technology provider, we know that this curve takes so long. If you get, for example, electric car, we know that the first cars for Tesla start with $1 million. Right now, we can buy with 30,000. This process takes long. I don't believe that you have enough time to wait this. But the technology side, we need to improve our technology to have this kind of the access for the different kinds of the farmers. We create our company in South America, in Brazil specifically. We are responsible to provide, on average, 10% of the food for the world. And this responsibility will increase the next year. If you guys understand how big is the increase of the production of the soybeans and corn in Brazil, it is huge. And the only way to do this, it is using technology. As the Dr. Timio mentioned, and Francesco, we don't have more land, and we need to be more with the same square meter of the land. And another topic that is nice to mention here to explain that this technology, when you talk about the large farmers, it is easy to have this access because they have money to buy this kind of technology. How we can transform this technology and stand for the smaller farmers? That is the big challenge. That is what we are understand. And the situation that the edit mentioned about the water happens because we are seeing the climate change happens, but in average 65% in the world hoje about the loss of the productivity, it is because of the drought, not because of the floating. So how we can create genetics, how can we innovate kind of the seeds to survive in this world that you are living. So we need water, but you need a genetics innovation to support this as well, because we have a limited research when you talk about the water. We know about the solar panels is increased, the efficiency of the pivots, about the irrigation, but this technology needs to create in different, grow in different perspectives, not just the use of the research, but to provide technology, provide innovation, and for sure, the innovation as tools, not the ends of the day. Because farmers don't want technology. Farmers, they want seeds, they want chemical, and they want productivity. Technology is just the middle to make this more efficient.
You not only you give a brilliant answer, but you also save a bit of my role asking yourself a question. So I will just repurpose the question directly to Timo. So the question that Leo just said at the end is that how, right? So here I want to ask the best lesson learned from the policies application on spreading these food security policies around the world. What did we learn, Timo?
That's a very big question. I think it begins with being context specific. There are problems all over the world, but the solutions are specific to not just the location and the landscape, but also the people who need to use it. And if we don't understand the people that need to use it, whatever we try will not work. I think that is a really important thing. The other thing is there are things that spread by themselves. Those are the things we need to latch on to. And sometimes you need to invest in things that 30 years ago, I don't think a lot of people believe mobile phones would become a technology that everyone would have. And now we can't live without them anymore. So there are things that will come and pick up. Drought-tolerant seeds was mentioned, is I think absolutely critical, but we don't have enough of it yet in the world. I was just, last year I was in Kenya, and Kenya can meet about 10% of its need of drought-tolerant seeds. I mean, 90% of farmers don't have access to it because the seed's not there. And for that, I think we need to combine technology with also practices in the landscape. I looked at droughts in Kenya. The number of droughts and the severity of droughts is not increasing if you look at the rainfall. But because it's raining more intensely, there's more water that flows away and less that goes in the ground. So the soil has a problem. And if we look after the soil better, we have more water in the soil, we have less drought stress, and we don't need, we can manage sometimes without drought-tolerant seeds, at least for longer. So I think combining the technology with solutions that people can do by themselves, that will help to reach more at a larger scale.
I like that you mentioned as an example Kenya, because you give me another perfect assist to expand the debate today to us here in the room in Baku. And I want to call on stage Mr. Adam Gernsmeyer. He, for those of you that don't know him, is the chief of party of AGRA, the Alliance of Africans for Agriculture. He is based in Kenya. He has been the chief of staff of the special envoy of the United Nations for food security. And I actually told him, bring us your perspective to open the questions here from the floor. Thank you, Adam, for being with us.
Great. Thank you very much, and pleasure to be with everyone today. So, as introduced, I work for AGRA, and pleased to be bringing greetings from our president, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who many of you know worked on the UN Food Systems Summit, but also His Excellency Haile Mariam, our chair, who's the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, very much committed to the topics that we've been discussing here today. And I wanted to basically raise two reflections and maybe 2 points back to the panel. So I think on the two reflections, one is we're routinely saying that we need innovation across all parts of the food systems, right? Everything that was referenced here this morning, it can't just be one or two silver bullets. We need it for food systems for the future in carrying out the agriculture and food systems we haven't seen before. I think the second point is that the challenge on that is actually increasingly about scaling rather than sometimes the innovations that exist, right? And so we'll be participating also in the Aim for Climate work tomorrow, which some of you might be participating in, looking at how do you scale innovations in many different ways, whether it's partnerships or finance or other things that have been referenced. So the two thoughts coming back to actually many of the leaders that are here today. One is that we've been participating with something called a Food Innovation Hubs Global Network. Now this started actually out of the Netherlands working with the World Economic Forum, but also it now engages the United Arab Emirates. There's a Food Innovation Hub in Vietnam, Food Innovation Hub in Colombia, lots of different kind of country chapters. I occasionally look back at Netherlands actually as saying it's one of the richest food innovation hubs because of the innovation ecosystem that exists. But I think we're still learning around that. What does that take, and what, in an African context, we're working with the government of Rwanda on designing a food innovation hub, as well as the government of Kenya. And there's always appetite for it, but the question, how do you do that? What does it take to create an innovation ecosystem that can unlock so much more? So welcome any reflections on that or partnerships in the room. The second is around how do we get global cooperation on this issue, I think as was referenced here today. As someone who participated in the UN Food Systems Summit and then COP28, I'd say I appreciate the leadership on the stage from the government of Italy. I think, again, seriously through the UN Food Systems Summit process, while it came out of the UN, it really benefited from member states pushing behind this and the leadership of the government and His Excellency Ambassador Gatti, who was referenced on food security. I think, though, at the same time, we benefited from Spain's leadership with the CFS chair, who was also a formal global ambassador on food security, Ambassador Ferrero. So as we look at next year, the other opportunity is there's UNFSS +4, right? We'll be where we're at next year. There's also the Financing for Development conference taking place in Spain. And one of the questions I had since we're in the Spanish pavilion is how can we potentially use the conference and leadership from member states to focus on finance as a clear scaling constraint? Is that an opportunity over the coming 12 months with many of you and your institutions? Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks to you, Adam. You want to leave it as a rhetorical question, or shall I give the mic to one of our... I will give the mic to Francesco, and then, of course, the next question is from you here on the floor.
So, you said almost everything. So, from my side, what I believe is that it is crucial to keep the attention on this target. As you say, Italy is involved in this. We are working, and I believe that we are ready to support again further initiative in this kind of topics. It's clear that without the possibility to, is a sort of domino. I don't know if it is correct. The translation in English is if you are not able to provide what you need, obviously you have migration, you have tension, you have conflicts. And in this moment we have more conflicts with the climate change in comparison with the other, even if nobody tells us. Nobody is speaking about this, but this is what's happening right now. So Italy is in this very engaged.
Yes, thank you. To Adam's question around scaling, I think you have really hit the heart of the issue. It's not as if we don't have innovations. It's often the scaling that is the roadblock. And again, one of the things around that is that many of these technologies have an upfront high cost and then no running cost, like solar irrigation. I mean, there's no way a smallholder farmer can pay, upfront $1,000 that's required to install a system. And how do we make those financing much more fair and equitable is, I think, at the heart of it. The other thing that happens within that innovation, and we at the CGIAR do a lot of these innovations, and over the years what we have learned is we have to really co-create them. I think this is also now all of us understand. Very often scientists might think that we know what the farmers need, but actually we don't know. I mean, we have to literally co-create those technologies with them, and that also improves adoption of those technologies. And then I really like what Timo said. Some of the things are so intuitive and so important that, you don't have to push so much for those kind of, how to adopt. But majority of the things, I think, still would need push for adoption. And my main concern is we are asking smallholder farmers to adopt low emission technologies, but the IPCC food chapter and the synthesis report actually shows that unlike solar or wind, which are more cost competitive than the fossil fuel alternatives, in the ag sector, every low emission technology is actually more expensive than the business as usual. So it is actually more expensive to do low emission farming than to do business as usual, chemical farming or whatever farmers are doing now. So how do we bring down the cost is, I think, also literally $1 trillion questions, and we don't have time. Solar panels had 40 years, EVs had 40, 50 years to develop, but we have never focused on agricultural innovations and bringing down the cost. So I think those are really important touch points where we have to think together. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like just to add a point on this speak, because I believe that as a society, the responsible for us increase a lot, and I considering three main bullets. I call 3 C's, because many of these countries, you can say in Africa or different countries in the world, we have a finance crisis. So this is the first C. The second C, it is the climate change, what you are discussing here. I believe this is changing the way that you need to do food using technology innovation. And the third one, it is conflict. We have a lot of conflict in different parts of the world. All these three C's is changing the way that you need to thinking about the food. Because of that, a lot of hunger on the world. Because of that, we have a lot of populations growing and you need to produce more food. So how we can turn this reality into action? I believe this is our main challenge for the next 5 years.
Sialam seems satisfied. I would take a question from the audience, if it's okay for you. Let me ask if any of you has any. Thank you, Elena.
Yeah, I think building on what Adam said, I think I actually would want to hear from all of you in the panel. As you said, we have two stopgaps coming up. One, of course, would be Brazil, COP30, although we still, really, we have to get agreements at COP29. But of course, it's very important that we move into your country, and we're looking forward to it. But in between, we have the development conference in Madrid, as it was mentioned. So I think from your point of view, if there are, sessions on agriculture, if we're looking about cooperation, what would you suggest should be some of the key issues that should be looked at in that development conference in Spain?
I think the first thing in the discourse is we need to be very clear. We cannot solve the climate problem if we don't look at food systems. And we cannot solve the food problem if we don't look at climate. If we continue doing our climate stuff as climate and our food security stuff as food security without looking at the other, we will fail. I think we need to be very, very, very clear about that. And that requires resources. There's a fraction only of adaptation money that goes to food systems. I think that needs to be very much put on the table. And the problem is smallholder farming is not interesting for private sector. For service providers, yes, but not for investors, because you can't really make money of someone who grows food for themselves and their village. So I think we need a very open discussion on where we send the public money and where we send the private money, so that the money that is there gets mobilized and that it actually reaches the people at the forefront of climate change who will suffer the worst hunger.
This suggests me that is space only for a last question from the audience. So let me ask if any of you has any. Otherwise, I will bring us back to one of the questions I had myself prepared for this panel, because ultimately we have discussed many topics, from the nexus of innovation and food security, from the role of water. Maybe I want to restart from you, Leo, and I want to ask you, on top of all of this, which one for you as a business, for you as an innovator, is the key challenge in bringing this innovation to reality? And let me add an additional angle, right? We've been the only conference of innovation in the year not to mention the word AI. So I want to break the record. We will mention the word AI. So adding the word AI to the picture, right? Is this challenge now much easier than before, or ultimately in agri-tech, as Riti was mentioning, a different paradigm holds? So here we are speaking about a different time pace, so that still there is a cost disadvantage, and even AI is making this challenge equally staying.
AI, machine learnings, all these kind of the fancy languages doesn't matter for farmer. That is the point. That is just one tool that we are using in our technology that everybody is using right now. That is fancy when you talk about this kind of technology right now, because it is a lot of buzzwords. And we believe that many things will change. But what Dr. Timo mentioned is how can use this kind of the tools to change the reality. For Solinf Tech and specifically when you talk about the challenge, I believe that make technology feasible and affordable for farmers is a big problem, because when I have a different kind of the situation, when you go to South America, North America, different countries in Africa or countries in Europe, they have a different perspective about using technology, using innovation. They don't care about that. Again, they want saving money, they want to produce more, and if this practice, if this technology put more money in his pockets, or even the credit carbon, I believe that makes sense. But the challenge in the top of this, for sure, it is finance perspective to make accessible and affordable for them, and in specific case, it is education. I believe that you pick a kind of technology and drop in different kind of the countries, don't solve a problem. You need to pass through education about how these guys can use different kind of technology to make them more efficient, to make them more sustainable. So it is a big challenge, and you need to thinking out of our box. That is what is happening. Even that Brazil and US have a big challenge to produce more food. We know they are responsible to produce the major part of the food, but we need to understand that we have lands that we can try to use more technology and produce food to help the farmers to support a new generation of the hunger that we probably need to solve.
On this tone, if it's okay for you, I will ask 30 seconds. Final remark from each one of you, starting from you, Aditi.
Thank you. And I actually wanted to take this opportunity to quickly answer to also Elena's question. I think one of the things that needs to be on the table at both COP30 as well as the conference in Spain has to be just transition in the agri-food system. We talk of just transition in the context of energy, like what happens to the livelihoods of the coal miners and the oil and gas workers when we move to renewable energy, an extremely important one. We have a just transition work stream here at the COP negotiation, but nobody is talking about what happens to those smallholder farmers when they have to move to a low emission technology. How do we protect their interests, their livelihoods? So what do we bring in terms of social security? And it's just as relevant in Europe as it is in the rest of the global south, right? I mean, we can't ask farmers to do something that harms their own livelihood. So we have that, like just transition would be something very important to be on the table.
Thank you. I pass it to Timo, and then we're going to close with Francesco.
I think we need to cooperate together. I think we need a lot more working together from different perspectives, because we can complement each other. And if we find each other's strong points, we can build on each other and together see how we can work on the puzzle, because we can't do it on our own.
Francesco, to you the honor of our closing.
You spoke a lot about technologies. It's crucial, it's important, but remember that the technology sometimes needs the same resources. I give you an example. To produce 1 kilogram of green hydrogen, it is necessary 10 liters of water. Think about this, because if we use in one direction, it's tough sometimes.
What a beautiful provocation to give a closing to our debate today. What is my role now to make some final remark? And it's to tell you, first of all, thank you to the Pavilion of Spain for hosting our discussion and many other discussions on the future of agriculture, the future of sustainable innovation. From the speakers today, I say a big thank you, and I'm going to carry with me like many of your insights. I want to just mention 4 to give credits to the discussion. I love, Aditi, when you shed light on the fact that in the world of agriculture, we don't have the luxury of having developed for 40 consecutive years innovations at scale. So it's something that needs to happen faster and with less money. Welcome to the channel. For Leo, I not only love the examples, right? Someone that has 800 people working on agri-tech innovation from the south of the world for the entire world. Already that one would deserve like the praise of all of us today. But I love when you told us that education is probably at the core. And in this sense, is not just educating the poor, as some people would negatively say, to use a technology, but educating to innovate, because that technology should be applied and should find a meaning in a different place with a different purpose. From my friend Francesco, I always have a lot of insights, so I will allow to mention only one. And I love at the beginning when you mentioned, Francesco, that the president of G7, for the first time, put at the center food security, and sometime like what could be symbolic. Having a special envoy for this topic could mean everything. Could mean that people have an address to call, a phone number to call, and a clear direction to whom you should be accountable on. So I want to praise your work in this direction and the entire G7 presidency of the year. From Dr. Timo, I actually was preparing a lot, looking at what the Netherlands is doing in the space of cooperation and the space of bringing the Dutch technology as an example in foreign affairs, but also an example of working with partners. And I love how, as you closed, bringing on stage Adam and saying that by coming to Kenya, you realized that there is a paradigm that needs to be understood, and here, we need to restart everything literally from having a equal level field discussions and not a unilateral approach. From myself and from all of us, I want to say a last thank you to Foretica for sponsoring this panel, for Illuminem for giving me the opportunity to be on so many stages and so many insightful discussions, to Elena for the great work that she has put in the preparation of the panel today, but also in IPCC. Elena Lopez, for those of you that might not know her name. And from all of us at the Spanish Pavilion, a big thank you and a good luck for the climate negotiations to Francesco and those leading it. Thank you all.